Okay, we are live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Zoom Facilitation Tips. My name is Rhiannon Gutierrez, and I'm the Director of Digital Learning for BPS Technology. And joining me is Casey Courts, Digital Learning Specialist, and she will be in the chat answering questions along the way. We have a pretty big group today. It's possible it will continue to grow. So please, if you have any questions at all, post them in the chat, and Casey and I will do our best to answer them in real time, okay? With that being said, let's dive in. As you know, if you've been to a webinar with us, this webinar is being recorded. We will be sharing a link to the recording, the slide deck, and the feedback and reflection form at the end of the webinar. Casey will follow up with you shortly, so you have access to all the resources that you need. It looks like everybody is using their names in the chat today, so thank you for that, because it will help us identify you. If you need to change it at any point, please hover over the right corner where the 3 dots are and add your name. Again, please post any questions that you have in the chat, because this is a big group. We want to make sure we get through all the content. So Casey will answer any questions that you have, especially if you might be lost or unsure about something. Our agenda for today is that this is a hands-on webinar. We want you to get ready to learn about some security features, how you can mute participants, just like what I did at the beginning of today's webinar, how you can add co-hosts, especially if you are using the Boston Public Schools Zoom account, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. We also want to make sure you know how to use non-verbal feedback, so that includes hand raising and thumbs up. We're going to talk about breakout rooms and simulate what that looks like. We're going to talk about whiteboard and annotation features, some polling, and some live captioning. All right, so we're going to demo all of these things today.
Hi, I was muted. So I was actually just finishing a comment to Antonietta. She asked, how do you ensure your picture shows up each time? Mine shows up sometimes, but not all the time. So the answer to that, Antonietta, could be a couple of things. It could be perhaps you're not running the latest version of Zoom. I'll throw a link in the chat to be able to check whether or not you are. It sort of walks you through. It's a support link from Zoom. The other answer might be if, let's say, for whatever reason, your computer doesn't immediately recognize, or there's a connection between your computer and Zoom, you might need to go in and actually manually sort of engage either your image or your camera. So I'll walk you through that when I get back in the chat, but I'm just going to walk through Clever right now, which is actually perfect that I saw Francisco ask this question in the chat. So I'm really glad you asked this, Francisco. So one of the topics that I like to make sure I cover with folks when we talk about Zoom facilitation tips is that BPS staff should be signing into Zoom via Clever. So what does that mean? That means going to bostonpublicschools.org/backpack. And Bree, if you wouldn't mind putting that link in the chat, that would be great. What that will do, and I'm actually going to share my screen momentarily. So I'm just going to take over for just a moment, and I will show you what this looks like and sort of walk you through this process. So give me just a moment. I'll pull that up. Okay, so I actually had this link pulled up here. So when I go to bostonpublicschools.org/backpack, it takes me to this page. Okay, you'll notice that the link actually reverts to this very long text, but it will take you to this page. And you'll want to click Login with Google. So once I click there, it will ask, you can see I have a variety of different Gmail accounts, but I'm going to choose my Boston Public Schools account. Make sure that you choose your BPS account. That is the most pressing. And then you can see here that I happen to have a couple of different IDs within Clever. You'll probably just see login as teacher. You'll want to click login as teacher. It will take just a moment. And you'll see that under staff links, you will see Zoom, teachers, and staff. And that is how you want to log in. So the reason why we want you to be able to do that is because there are a lot of security features enabled in Zoom if you do it that way. And Rhea, if you want to take control back of the screen again, you can go ahead and do that. I will walk through sort of the reasons why you want to be able to log in through Clever. So the security features that are available to you by doing it this way are numerous. Now, when the school closure happened 9 weeks ago, Zoom and Clever merged, thanks Ree. And what they did is they essentially said, we're going to lift the 40-minute cap for all users who are accessing Zoom, sort of across the board, regardless of whether or not, regardless of how they were accessing Zoom. But actually accessing Zoom through Clever allows you also to have a couple of features enabled that you don't have to do automatically or manually, rather. They're done automatically for you. So one of them is the ability to only have hosts and co-hosts to be able to share their screens, so that you do not have the ability for participants to share their screens. This is a really helpful feature to be able to make sure only you and your colleagues are sharing what's happening on their screens. The waiting room has been enabled throughout the Zoom environment, and you have the ability to make sure that your room is far more secure than if you were doing this otherwise. So we would just really recommend that you be able to access Zoom through Clever. If you have questions about this, I see that there are a few in the chat. Yes, and yeah, and I should mention, if you go back one slide, Ree, actually going back. Perfect, thank you. By going through Zoom through Clever, you'll be able to merge your accounts. So what I mean by that is, let's say you already have an account in Zoom using your BPS email, that's great. But what it might ask you the first few times you log in, or the first time rather you log in to Zoom through Clever, is do you want to merge your accounts? Because basically it'll recognize you already have an account. That's fine, you can answer yes. And then you should be able to have all of the features available here. And thank you, I was trying to keep up with the chat and talk at the same time, which is always tough. So Ree, thank you so much for being my eyes there, that's wonderful. Linked from this slide deck, which we'll be sharing with you at the close of the webinar, are two documents, the Zoom help docs and Zoom safety tips. These are incredibly helpful to have, and I see Ree is putting them into the chat right now. These are great to be able to have not only as a facilitator, but also to share those safety tips with your students. They are translated into Spanish as well, so it's really nice to be able to have those at the ready. And I will take over the chat now once you're done typing, Ray.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple of questions that need to be clarified. I think some folks might be slightly confused in this regard. So I want to reinforce that when you go to Clever and you click on that staff link, as Casey showed you, it will ask you, if you've never been there before, to merge an existing Zoom account that you have if you've created one outside of Clever. You want to say yes and merge. If you are going in there and it's not asking you about a merge, that means you've never created one before. So once you do that through Clever, then you will be all set. You will be linked to the BPS institutional Zoom with all the safety features and controls that come with it. Casey will type exactly what I said in the chat, because once you link there, then any website you go on, whether it's the Zoom website, Google Calendar, or Gmail, it's connected to the BPS institutional Zoom. When you merge it once, you're done, you're set. You have all the features. You just have to merge. And yes, you absolutely need to update your Zoom. So when we say update your Zoom, we mean running the latest version, because it's actually going to force all users by the end of May to update to Zoom 5.0. That will also be something that Casey shares in the chat. Okay. All right, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about some features. So if you're not noticing anything, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Everything we're showing you today, you have to make sure it's enabled under your settings tab in Zoom. So a little bit about that. One of those things that is really, really important for us is the security features. So the security features that we're talking about, this is a brand new thing in Zoom. If you are the host, I'll repeat that. If you are the host, then you will see the security tab. And what's in the security tab is the feature to lock the meeting, which means no one else can join the meeting once you've locked in. We don't tend to use that a lot with our webinars because, excuse me, because people still come in and join. But if you have students come into the space, that's a safety feature that you want to use. We also have our waiting rooms enabled. This is turned on for all BPS Zoom accounts if you are going through the institutional one. We also turned off screen sharing, so you would have to make sure you check it off if people are going to screen share. And that's also true for chat and renaming. So anything that's checked off, that means that feature has been turned on. If you don't see a check, it's not turned on. And this is something that you can control when you are the host of a meeting, okay? And I did notice in the chat, someone was asking about recording of meetings. And so unfortunately, when you merge with the BPS institutional Zoom, you will not have the ability to record meetings. And I say this because, and we do this for privacy reasons, because there's risk of Zoom bombing. And there's also, we don't want to be sharing students' personal information via recording. And my boss likes to say, if you wouldn't be recording it in real time, why are you recording it online? So that's one of the things we want to keep in mind. So if you want to record anything, then you would probably have to use external tools, but you cannot use Zoom's built-in recording tools because we have disabled those. All right. All right, so with that being said, let's talk about some other features. Casey, do you want to discuss this?
Absolutely. If you wouldn't mind addressing Leah's question around hosts in the chat, that would be great. I think that was the one I didn't get to. In terms of muting participants, there is the ability to mute your participants up front. So on the back end of your Zoom settings, and this is something I would recommend prior to launching meetings in Zoom with students, really become familiar and comfortable with all of the different settings that are available to you in Zoom. There are numerous settings. I think the easiest way to sort of explain this is the training for Zoom 101 is an hour long, and the training for Google Meet, which is another video conferencing tool, is 30 minutes. And the main difference is just the exhaustive number of settings that you can use in Zoom. So one of those settings you can explore prior to running a Zoom meeting with students is the ability to mute participants. You can do that ahead of time, or if, let's say, you come into the room and you decide you want to mute participants, you can go ahead and do that selectively. You can do that in real time. You can do that in the meeting. And you can see in this screenshot that's on the screen, you can see that one of the options under the participants tab, and you'll see a certain version of this as a participant right now, but as a host, there are more sort of controls available to you. So for example, when Rhiannon and I are in as host and co-host right now, when we click the more button under the participants sort of list, if you were to click on participants in that black Zoom toolbar toward the bottom of your screen, and then click that more button that appears, you would see that the settings that are enabled here are not necessarily mute participants on entry, but allowing participants to unmute themselves, allowing participants to rename themselves, and the enter exit chime. These are all customizable for you as the host. There's also the ability to lock the meeting. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But that is something that we do get some questions about, around the idea of, if I do quote unquote lock the meeting, does that mean that my participants can't leave? No, that is not what that means. What that means is, if let's say you were expecting 12 participants and all 12 had arrived, if you wanted to enable lock meeting, that would mean no additional participants could join the meeting. We don't really tend to use it in BPS Tech just because we're looking to have as many teachers in our sessions as possible. And if we lock the meeting, that means other participants can't join. So in terms of adding co-hosts, and I saw a few comments about this in the chat, so I'm really glad that we have some dedicated time here about this. I answer the comments as quickly as I could in the chat, but this is something to be aware of. You can add co-hosts at the start of your meeting, and you can have multiple hosts. So co-hosts assist, as you can see here, that we are modeling, and it's this is definitely, I think, the biggest webinar we've co-facilitated together, Rhi. We have 65 participants, and so it's a really fantastic best practice to have at least 2, if not more, facilitators or hosts in your meeting to be able to avoid the experience of being that one-person band, so that you don't have, one person who's trying to watch the chat, advance the slides, making sure that all the comments are being responded to. And actually, I'm hearing some background noise. If we wouldn't mind muting ourselves when we're not speaking, that would be great. Thank you. So do know that co-hosts can assist with several different controls. They cannot launch breakout rooms. So if you are looking to do that, your host of the meeting will be the only person who's able to do that. If you're looking to make someone a co-host, so let's say you're planning to run a Zoom meeting and one of your colleagues is going to join you in that role, they can join the meeting, and then you can see, if you mouse over the participants tab and you mouse over their name, this is the menu, the screenshot we have on this slide here, that you can see you can make them a co-host. You can also make them a host if you want to cede that control to another participant. You can make them the host. One of the comments in the chat was, sometimes the host can't stay the whole time or doesn't need to be there. You can make that, another teacher or host, and then you cede that responsibility to them. We do have a link embedded in the slide about more information about adding co-hosts, but I think that covers sort of the basics of the co-host role.
Thank you for that, Casey. I was just answering some questions in the chat about the co-host and host role. So it's important to know the host has to be present in order for you to even add any co-hosts.
That's right. That is right.
All right.
So in terms of nonverbal feedback, there are numerous ways, and this is one of the great settings that I really appreciate about Zoom. There are numerous ways that participants can sort of respond in nonverbal ways through the platform. I want to walk you through a few of them. There is this button at the very bottom of, in that black toolbar that you use in Zoom, and Rhiannon is mousing over the reactions button right now in the screenshot on the slide. You can see in reactions, there's the ability to look like you're applauding or to do the thumbs up. So when you welcome students into the Zoom room, you'll just want to show them where these sections are. So if you want students to be able to applaud or give a thumbs up, show them how they can do that in that reactions button. There are also additional ways to be able to respond nonverbally under that participants view. So if they were to click on participants, they'll see a menu similar to this one right that we took a screenshot of on the screen on the lower part of the slide, where they can raise their hand. They can indicate yes or no if that's a question that you are asking them. They can also indicate the idea of, you know what, I need you to slow down your pace. They can click the go slower button or go faster. There is also the ability to click on that more button, and you can see that you can do the thumbs down, thumbs up, more applause. I always joke about the coffee one. I have mine right here. There are multiple ways to be able to, sort of express yourselves non-verbally in Zoom. And I just think it's nice for our students who might not be as excited about the feature or, really able to engage in the feature of using the microphone or even the chat, but they can engage in Zoom through non-verbal ways. So I'm just checking the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything around that. Nathan asks, does the last one stand for time's up? I actually think that might be one that has to do with having stepped away. I've seen it used in that regard before. I'm not sure if there may very well be a name for that one that looks like a clock. You could, I suppose, if you wanted to use it in that way, you could say, yeah, okay, so Anita's saying it says away. Yeah, that's how I've always thought of it. Thank you. And Ree is encouraging, if you want to try out, if you want to go to the participants view and click on the raise hand, feel free to do that. And I see Chelsea's noting that it does say away, but I use it for I need more time. That's great. I love that customization. That's fantastic. Wonderful.
So with that being said, I think that it's really important for us to establish some norms utilizing this nonverbal feedback.
Sure.
So for example, one of the things that we did at the very, very beginning of this is we said one of our norms is ask questions in the chat. So if we were actually going to encourage like the speaking up, like you unmuting yourselves, then you can actually utilize some of these icons, such as the raise hand feature. Since we have so many people, we're not doing that. However, I still think that it would be worth like checking out the hand raising feature. So let's all mouse down to where it says participants. So click on that, and then you should see a toolbar pop up that says you can raise your hand. So why don't we try that out? Just raising our hands. All right, let's just see what that looks like. All right, I can see there's little blue icons there. Awesome. So people are testing it out. You have a whole bunch of them. So you've been able to find it. There's also a thumbs up feature which you can use. And I noticed some people have customized it so it accounts for skin color as well. So these are things you can definitely utilize with your students and colleagues. All right, thank you. Now you can lower your hands. Also, as a facilitator, I can see who raised their hand first, second, third, fourth. So that listing helps me identify who I should call out next. All right. So with that being said, let's check out some other features. Now we were talking about breakout rooms. Someone was asking a question about the timer for breakout rooms, and no, there's no correlation at all. It's separate. So in breakout rooms, we have very specific controls that we use for this. I believe that Casey, as the one who is the main host, and me as the co-host, is actually the one who's controlling the breakout rooms now. So I'll give you a little bit of context for them. I actually do want to see you raise your hand if you have used breakout rooms before. Can I see that as nonverbal feedback? Raise your hand if you have used a breakout room before. Let's see. People's general familiarity. So we have a good number of you. All right. So for some of you, this might be pretty exciting and new. All right, let's check this out. So breakout rooms are really great for smaller group work, especially because we have such a big group right now. We can definitely utilize breakout rooms to have more intimate conversations, especially if we might want to have different languages available. People need more one-on-one support. You can control who's in that room and for how long. You can specify how many rooms you want. There's a way to do it automatically as well as manually. We're just going to do it automatically for this particular session. So we have no assigned meeting here. It's just like, we're going to put you in a room for you to test it out. Also, there are countdowns in there. So if you are in a room, the host can designate your time in that room to be 5 minutes. And you can also say, okay, in 30 seconds, you're going to come back to the main session, which is this one. Also, if you are the host or a co-host, you are allowed to move around between rooms. If you are a participant, you cannot, so you are in that room. So that's why utilizing the chat feature is really helpful. Another thing that I want to mention when we go into breakout rooms is you can do screen sharing. I've actually had a number of calls with participants who are interested in providing more direct services to students. For example, if you are the general classroom teacher and you might be working with a specialist or itinerant teacher or some other provider, they can go into a breakout room with a student for a defined time and do some screen sharing. Then people can come back into the main session. So those are some things you can utilize in your own practice. All right. Now I want to see some questions before Casey pushes everyone to a breakout room. Casey, would you mind just getting everyone set up into, let's see, we have about 64 people. Maybe we can try 5 rooms. So I'm going to ask folks, when you go into your room, to just introduce yourselves and maybe have 1 or 2 people share how you're using Zoom right now. And you're not going to have a long time together, so we'll just keep this pretty brief.
I was just going to say, actually, Anita is in as the host. So Anita, would you mind making me the host? And then I'm happy to do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. And yes, Patty was asking about naming the breakout rooms. Absolutely. By default, they're called breakout room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you can name them. Like one time I actually called mine Team Rhiannon and the other one Team Casey. And so you can definitely have some fun with that, especially if it might be related to specific groupings. Also, participants, Anna was asking, can they leave the breakout room and go to the main room? Yes. So only facilitators can go into various breakout rooms. Only participants can go into the main room or the room they've been assigned to. All right.
Okay, so
You
are
can
we doing
have,
this for 5 minutes? Is that the time we
yes,
want to take? Okay, great.
absolutely. And you can only have one host, but multiple co-hosts.
Mhm.
Meaning that one host controls everything. They are like the overseer, but the co-hosts have certain functions they can do, like using the chat, moving around, and the like. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and activate those rooms for about 5 minutes. And as I mentioned, just talk in there. 1 or 2 people share how you're using Zoom right now, okay?
Off we go.
And you're gonna get pushed into these rooms. All right, I notice there's still some people in here. Did you get the invite to go into a breakout room?
Looks like everyone's assigned.
Yeah, there's still a few people in here. I don't know what's happening.
I'm not sure either. Let's see. Oh, no, I think
I
people
think
are
it's just
moving.
taking some time.
Right.
All right, I don't think I am able to go into rooms, so you would have to assign me.
I will assign you. I'm just looking for you here.
Let me see. Let me make the screen smaller. Okay, here we go. Hi there, Pierre. Are you all set? Welcome back. All right.
Back. And through the magic of Zoom, we are returning.
All right. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep.
As everyone's joining, I'm just going to write this message. It's very hard to do this with the keyboard, the trackpad. Oh my goodness. All right. Casey, let me know when everyone's back.
Will do. I'm just responding to a comment in the chat. Looks like we have 66 people, so we should be back.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Casey.
No problem.
Okay, so you had some time to experience breakout rooms as a participant, and maybe a few of you got a chance to speak about your Zoom experience. Right now, what you're seeing on my screen is the use of the whiteboard feature. Now, this is something that you can definitely enable in Zoom by going to your settings. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, if you don't see a feature, that's probably because it has not been turned on in your settings. So whiteboard and annotation are two of those tools that we want to tell you a little bit about. I was actually in a breakout room where Pat was sharing that she is a math teacher and she was utilizing the whiteboard feature to talk with her students. So this is really exciting because one of the things you can do is you can play around with general tools that we might associate with whiteboarding, like text tools, drawings, stamps, a spotlight, which is sort of like, you're highlighting something. You can erase content, you can format it with different colors. The other day, I was in a chat with my mom, who happens to be a teacher, and she was talking about how she had a different color than I did, and she wanted to play around with that. So I just changed my color here. I just have to turn this off so that I can use it. Oop, that's a little weird. All right, so change the color here so you can see what it looks like. All right, so you can play around with the various colors, and then if you want, you really like what this says, then there is an option there to save it, and it gets saved to your computer. So this is really fun for you to play around with, especially if you might want to demo something in real time. So that's the whiteboard feature. There's also the option to annotate. I believe I have turned it on, so you should be able to do it. Basically, you as a participant can essentially draw over what I'm doing. And some elementary teachers have said, I don't really want this to be turned on all the time. The good news with the annotation feature is you can apply the global setting to have it turned on at all times, but you can disable it for that particular meeting. So that's something you have control of as the teacher and the host. But let's say you aren't exactly interested in Zoom's features and you want it to be more collaborative, where students are contributing to the same whiteboard. We do have some suggestions for you. And those suggestions are Ziteboard, which is a free app. I believe a lot of math teachers are using it. There are some limitations, but it's pretty cool. It is available in Clever. There's also Google Drawing, also available in Clever, and Jamboard. So all three of these you can easily access and utilize whiteboarding features just like when I was demonstrating within Zoom. With that being said, you really do have to find the tool that works best for you and for your students. All right. Now, with that being said, let's check out some other features such as polls. I've actually received a number of emails from teachers and from people across the district asking about the polls feature in Zoom. Here's a couple things. So yes, polling is available in Zoom. However, you must have a pro account. Teachers, if you are using the Clever BPS, you have a basic account. And unfortunately, polling is not included. So we have a workaround for that for you. And that is you can use external tools such as Google Forms or Mentimeter, which I'm about to demonstrate. And then that's where you can conduct your polls either anonymously or by utilizing, general email collection features that you might find in forms. So with that being said, you cannot utilize polls inside of Zoom if you are using the basic account, which all BPS teachers are using. You can use an external tool like Mentimeter. So we can actually test that out because it's kind of a fun tool you can play around with. So I'm going to post a link in the chat to Mentimeter, and I would like for you to do one of two things. You can either minimize this window in Zoom and open up a tab in your browser and go to this website, or you can just pull out your smartphone and type the code. So either way, you can participate with your phone or with your browser. All right. So here is a little bit about polling. So you want to go to this website, www.menti.com, and I'm going to display for you that code that you need. All right, just give you a few seconds to get there. So I want to make sure everyone knows that right now we are only recording ourselves. So there was a comment in the chat. Everything that you're seeing recorded on screen is just myself and Casey and our screens. We do not see other people in the chat. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my poll and show you the code. We have not displayed it yet. So once again, we're going to www.menti.com. I just posted in the chat, and the code is about to be displayed on the screen. 798317. Code is 798317. So go to menti.com and enter that code and just follow the prompt either on your phone or on your computer, depending on where you're choosing to participate. And I can see the numbers continue to grow on the screen as more people get added to it.
I'm sorry, can you say that code one more time? I just can't get back to the chat because I'm in the Mentimeter thing.
That's fine. The code is 798317. 798317.
Thank
All
you.
right. And then there was a question in the chat about polling features. So once again, polling is only available for pro accounts. We are not paying for pro accounts for over 5,000 people in Boston Public Schools. So unfortunately, you will have to use external features if you are interested in using polls. And I'm noticing there are some folks here who are having some trouble with Zoom and the connection. So there's actually a couple of things that Casey and I are going to share with you towards the end to help you improve your Zoom performance, because this is actually an issue a lot of people are facing because we keep using Zoom a lot. So fear not, if you're having some trouble, we will be sharing a general tip sheet with you at the end, okay? All right.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm having a hard time getting back to the screen I was in. And this is kind of sometimes what happens when I click on the link that's in the chat. I go to that thing, and then
Yep.
how do I get back? I mean, I see you, but I don't see your screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things you want to do if you navigate outside of this window is to take your mouse and then go down to where your apps are, and then just click on the Zoom icon, and that will bring you back to where we are. Always look for the Zoom icon.
Thank you.
Yep, and it'll bring you back. It's a great question. All right. So this is one option that you can utilize if you are interested in doing polls. Here's another thing about Mentimeter as a polling app, is that what we're doing right now is happening in real time. You can also use Mentimeter to be a self-paced lesson that students do. So they don't even have to do it during a Zoom session. If you feel like there will be a lot of technical troubles that students might face, that's your decision to make as a teacher. You can say, look, I want to give them a poll before our meeting or after our meeting. And you can post that in your Google Classroom or on your Clever page. It doesn't have to be during the Zoom session. All right. So with that being said, we have a lot of people here contributing to the word cloud. So thank you. One of the things that's really nice about this word cloud is you can actually export it as an image, and you can put this image in various places that you're interested in. All right. So we had about 49 people participate. That's still pretty good. Someone was asking about utilizing tools like Padlet for polling. So absolutely. Absolutely. So you can definitely choose the tool that works best for you and your students. The only thing is you can't use Zoom's embedded polling feature because it comes for paid accounts. That's it. All right, let's go to the next slide. And this one is actually a quiz in real time. What's your comfort level with using Zoom? I'm a newbie, I know a few things, or I've been using it often and I want to be a pro. So this is the last question. I only had two for you because this can be a really fun way to visualize some stuff for your students. And I know some people are having some trouble getting here. Just make sure that you click on the Menti link and enter the code. I'll enter another screen one more time for you all, just in case. All right. So we have a lot of folks who are saying that they have some familiarity with it, so that's pretty good. All right. All right. So we can go ahead and pause this poll. Thank you all so much for contributing to this. It looks like most people are somewhere in the middle, and we found that to be true every time we ran this poll. All right. So we'll exit it. Okay, so these are things you can easily utilize. Mentimeter is a free app, and it is available in Clever if you wanted to use it with your students for either real-time polling like what we're doing right now, or through asynchronous polling where you post it in your classroom on your Clever page just to get a general sense. And Mentimeter is 100% anonymous. And you can definitely change how it looks, because right now what you're seeing on my screen is pretty much the back end as a teacher. This is where I look at when I design my polls, but you as the student would be seeing, you know, the questions displayed. But you could certainly change up how you want things to be displayed, like multiple choice, word cloud, open-ended questions, scales, rankings, Q&A. You can also have like these little bubbles come in like when I did here. So this is completely up to you. I think it's kind of fun to see it visualized this way because Google Forms doesn't really give you dynamic visualization like this does. So again, if you're interested in this, please feel free to use it. All right. So we'll get back to our last feature we're going to talk about, and I'm actually really excited about this one because there are various ways that we can make our webinars accessible. In fact, someone just chatted me about the very thing I'm about to show you. So when it comes to captioning in Zoom presentations or in Google Meet, I'd want to clarify a couple things by calling out some things I saw in the chat. So we have two video conferencing solutions in the Boston Public Schools, Zoom and Google Meet. And you can choose which one you want to use, depending on what you're trying to do. So this webinar focuses more exclusively on Zoom and how you can use existing features within Zoom. However, one of the things I do want to mention before I get into Zoom closed captioning is that Google Meet, which already comes with the Google infrastructure, includes live auto captioning when you are in your meeting. So if you are interested in having live auto captioning already built in to a video conferencing tool, Google Meet is great for that. So that's definitely something that you should check out, especially if you might have students who are deaf or hard of hearing. However, if you are insistent on using Zoom, there's some ways that you can make it more accessible for your students. Now, Casey and I will tell you, we are slightly biased towards Zoom because we do notice that Zoom has better picture quality, which is really important for you to be able to see faces. Also, Zoom allows you to have breakout rooms, which Google Meet does not. However, with that being said, if you're going to be sticking with Zoom because you love the video quality and you love the breakout rooms, this is how you can make it accessible. So, one thing you can do is if you plan on presenting 100% of your instruction using a Google slideshow, which you most likely aren't, but if you are, this is how you can make your presentation accessible. If I go into present mode using Google Slides, I can turn on auto captioning. I'll say that again. Present mode, meaning full screen in Google Slides, you can turn on auto captioning. And then it will caption what I'm saying in real time. Of course, it's not going to be perfect because you still have the fact that it's a machine and I'm a human and a human is not editing these. This is a really good way to get captions in real time if you need to present just a slideshow. We don't do that 100% for our webinars, which is why you do not see me use that the entire time. However, there are also other ways that you can make your Zoom presentations captioned. And one of those is actually a tool called Otter. And we do have someone who posted in the chat about Otter, and I believe she's a frequent user of the Otter app. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so with that being said, we'll post a link in here. Actually, Casey, I'm just going to copy this over just so we have it. So I just posted a link in the chat to Otter, but I'm going to do a live demo on my screen so you can see what it looks like. Now, Otter is free. You can definitely sign up for it to have things captioned in real time and use this paired up with Zoom, but it will be a separate transcript right now, so you would have to use a phone or open up a separate browser window and do a split screen to actually show what this looks like in real time. Now, what's really, really nice about Otter and Zoom and Google is that it all integrates very nicely. You can see here I have my dashboard, and this is my calendar. This is actually what's on my Google Calendar. If I click on Zoom facilitation tips, I would be going ahead and activating my meeting for people to see my captions occur in real time. Laura just called out that the free version of Otter only allows for 40 minutes. She's absolutely right. The premium version has no time limit. And there's also a team version, which actually allows Otter and Zoom to be integrated. And that's only available on the institutional level. And that's something we're exploring right now, but that's not currently available. So this is something you can utilize, I would say, in smaller group settings. This should never be a replacement for a human, but this is something, if someone needs quick and easy access to an accessible transcript, you can utilize this. So this is actually pretty good. I think the only thing that it doesn't do very well is to caption my name or Casey's name. Another thing to keep in mind is it's captioning what it's hearing in the room. So if I'm wearing my headphones, if Casey were to talk, all of a sudden you would not see her voice appear on here. However, if I were to take my headphones off, it would pick up her voice. So Casey, let's actually demonstrate this very quickly before we go off. So I'm gonna take my headphones off and I'm just gonna sit, keeps talking. Casey, do you wanna say something?
Absolutely. I think it's been great to have everyone here today. I'm thrilled to be able to demonstrate this particular functionality because I think it's something not everyone is aware of. And we are really excited as a team to have access to this tool. So I see there was a comment in the chat about, is it all right to leave if I have to go to class in 5 minutes? The answer is yes, absolutely. Feel free. We will send you the link to the feedback form. I'll also paste it in the chat momentarily. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Linda. That's wonderful.
Right, so one final thing that I would like to share with you, which is, now I was talking about how this can be tough to manage, so it would be helpful to have a separate device to use in conjunction with this. Another thing you could do is use a desktop presentation of what you are doing and just essentially split your screen where you have the transcript on one side and your presentation on the other. So that way participants can both see what you're saying as well as the screen that you're demonstrating. Of course, this is not exactly the prettiest display, but it is definitely something that you can utilize if you're interested. All right, with that being said, Zoom, I think, has a lot of fantastic features that are already embedded in there that Casey and I both love. But if there are some that you see are missing, we hope that, the addition of those polling apps and the captioning apps, the whiteboard apps will help you really take your Zoom game to the next level. Of course, this takes a lot of practice. So Casey and I are always here, to play with you if you're interested in utilizing our office hours or reaching out to us one-on-one. With that being said, a couple things. Whether this is your first or fifth webinar with us, it's important that you know that you need to fill out the feedback form so that you can tell us that you were here so you can receive credit. If you have more interest in learning about Zoom or various apps, then you will be able to get more support in that regard. All right. So we are continuing to offer webinars and courses beyond today. Casey and I will share the link to the slide deck, the recording, and the feedback form with you at the end if you need to head out. But we also will be sharing a link to upcoming webinars that we will be running at least until the end of this school year. So if you feel like you still need support beyond the 5-hour requirement, you're still gonna get it. We are still here for you. So this particular session that we have is called Zoom Facilitation Tips. So if you are looking for more Zoom support on the webinar listing, you can either go to the Zoom for Teachers or Zoom Facilitation Tips, or utilize office hours if you want some one-on-one support. That is it for us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Thanks. Have a great
Thank you. Where
Happy
is
Friday.
the link for feedback?
Thank you.
The feedback form, I will post it one more time. We're also going to email it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.